What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Power of X, where we stop guessing, start testing, and uncover the X factor that unlocks your true potential. Today, we're talking about inflammation, the buzzword, that you hear all over. And Joe, what has been your experience with inflammation and regarding bodybuilding and your journey and training as well?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it, buzzword. It has become a buzzword in the industry, and usually buzzwords are just overused scare tactics a lot of times. Are we using it as a scare tactic in this episode? Somewhat. I think we should be, I think we should be afraid of it. Inflammation is not a great thing, but I think a lot of people use it almost as a crutch, and it's used in the industry as, again, more of a I have a pill, a potion, or whatever, or a book that can solve your inflammation. So people hear that stuff in their head. They might not be getting the results that they're getting. So they just say, I know I have to be inflamed, or right, inflammation has to be my problem. Right, their gut's not working just right, or it's kind of distended. Well, it must be inflammation. And you can dive into that, and yes, it could possibly be, but one of the things is nobody wants to dive into, okay, what is causing this inflammation? How do we get out of it? Right, we have to identify it, figure out what to do, but then how do we cut this inflammation down? And you have to test. I mean, it's, there's, we can identify them all day long that this might be a problem. I can read a book, I can do these things, but unless we identify what is actually creating inflammation in our body and what it's doing, it is literally just that. It's a buzzword that's going to, be here one day and gone the next, and it's going to be on to the next thing.
Right. Yeah. So which test specifically is going to be the one that is going to identify those triggers the most?
Yep. So in our repertoire, that would be the ALCAT. It is testing somebody's neutrophil, right? If you guys want to travel back in time to eighth grade biology or whatever, and learn about the cell, and when you thought, I'm never going to need this information ever again, here we are. We're bringing it up years and years later. But yeah, a neutrophil is like a first line defense. It's basically an immune response to an outside factor that comes in. So what the ALCAT test does is it takes your neutrophil and introduces foods, medicinals, medications, prescriptions, just a plethora of items. And then it says, how does this body, their immune response, is there an immune response, and how severe is it? Because one of the things I do want to stop here and say, there is a big difference between sensitivities and allergies, right? An allergy is something that's typically going to be somewhat of an immediate response to, several hours. Like, if you eat a peanut butter sandwich and your tongue swells up and your throat closes, that's an allergy. Like, we know that's a bad thing. We don't have to guess that typically. That's kind of known. Where a sensitivity is something that typically is not going to show up in something that you can feel, to where now all of a sudden we're creating chronic inflammation. Inflammation has cellular damage. Cellular damage pulls a lot of our nutrients, and long term, it's going to lead to a ton of problems, right? You're going to autoimmune diseases, all these, because we're constantly chronically inflamed. Chronic inflammation pulls tons and tons of nutrients out of our cells to combat the inflammation. So then we're chronically cellular deficient, just like we've talked about, like in the GLP-1 episode, and all the problems that can go down. And it's like a lot of these are being caused by just things that we're eating on a daily basis. And we're going to dive into that just kind of in my own life, how it worked for me personally, not some random stranger I know.
But Joe, you've done a lot of tests for clients as
Yep.
well. And so one of the things that is intriguing is, yeah, it is something that people should learn and talk about. And I suppose testing's not the only way, right? You could
Nope.
keep a
Yep.
religious food journal and monitor yourself, but
It's the
I'll
whole
tell you
30.
from what's
Yeah.
that?
That's the whole 30 diet. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the error in ability to really get accurate, I think is much less than people realize. Now, it's possible, sure, but I guess what I'm saying is Joe, you've tested a lot of your clients. What's the typical client come to you? What's the thing that makes you say you should do a food sensitivity test?
A lot of it was my own personal story where I gave, okay, this is what I did. I've been a bodybuilder, I've been shredded, I've been bulked, I've done every walk of life in terms of a physical appearance. And except for like severely overweight. I guess I've never been there before. But it's I would show examples of foods that I ate on a daily basis. And you were talking about ways to identify these things without testing. Whole 30, the elimination diet. Yeah, I there's no way that I could have done an elimination diet and figured out all this stuff on my own. There's just no possible, because the foods I ate on a daily basis is what I thought agreed with me. Right. So when I did a test and I start showing, okay, this showed up as a moderate, this showed up as mild, and there's different levels to this, and we can dive into here in a bit. But me telling my story was one of the biggest reasons that a lot of people kind of dove in to it, or they were actually suffering from some kind of, gut distress. They'd buy a pill. A lot of them in my world, sorry to jump around a little bit, but in my world, I get messages all day long, right? My gut hurts. I don't know what's going on. What do you think of this product? And then they come up with some brand that I've seen that's supposed to be some gut cleanse and all this different stuff. And then they're always looking for some kind of product to purchase to go fix whatever problem they have. And after a lot of those conversations, I say, again, it is probably inflammation, but unless we know how your body responds to these things, I don't care what gut protocol you do, because a lot of times these gut protocol pills, what they're taking, are on their sensitivity list. So that was kind of the thing, was people would always reach out asking about products, asking about protocols that I found worked. And my conclusion is, I don't know what protocol that's going to work for you. So we have to run a test to see what items, what ingredients your body agrees with and doesn't agree with. But yeah, most of the curiosity came from, they were searching out a product, right? They would reach out and ask if I know any good products. Like, a
So
lot of people think it's probiotics, it's prebiotics, it's fiber, it's some kind of gut cleanse. And they would send me all these labels and say, what do you think of this? And I mean, again, my response would always be, I don't know if these ingredients are going to be on your sensitivity or not.
So that sounds like a very personal journey, Joe, because you've been doing this for quite a few years. And I think I've heard you say before that, you'd made recommendations prior. So
Yeah.
what changed? Because I sense a very personal component here, that for you to be able to just blanketly respond, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Where it was me coming to the understanding of my own test when I did it on myself, and I'm looking at all the mistakes that I was making. No, it wasn't an ego burst. It was, well, yeah, how would I have known? Right. I mean, most will be like, oh, look how dumb I am, you know, and sadly, we do have a world that's, well, I've been doing it for 20 years. Well, what kind of test is going to show me anything? And no, it
Right.
wasn't like an ego burn. It was awakening up of saying, like, yeah, there's a far better way for me to be able to do this. It was, I mean, I welcomed it with open arms. In all reality, it's not like I didn't question it, because you can't argue how somebody's body has an immune response or not. It's like, no, that's just, that's not happening. No, your body is having an immune response, whether it be severe, mild, moderate, right? There is something going on internally on a cellular level that you don't even know about it. And we keep tossing products and pills down our hatch. And and we don't know. And I keep saying we because this was me to a T. I knew everything
Right.
about every product ever. These are known anti-inflammatories. These are known, I mean, again, just the term anti-inflammatory means, well, I can't have inflammation because I'm taking anti-inflammatories. Well, no, that's not. A lot of these anti-inflammatories can also be creating inflammation, and that's when there was like there was a cog in my wheel in my brain thinking, what do you mean an anti-inflammatory can be inflammatory?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's
What are some of the different levels of like inflammation response? Like, are there things that inflammation can creep up on you over time, you don't feel it right away, or is there inflammation responses that are immediate? Are there different levels to that?
So the way the test does it is severe is pretty much try and stay away from completely. There's moderate, which means doesn't mean you can't have it. It just means you should seldomly have it. Mild means, again, maybe once a week, twice a week at max. And then there's green, meaning no, your body had no immune response to it possible. So, we look at foods and all of a sudden we're looking at a diet. We're looking at, right, I mean, how to structure our lives to live optimally, right? Some people just don't even care, and you can tell. But if someone says, I do want longevity, I mean, running a food sensitivity test is a great idea for anybody, but especially those type of people. But if you can live your life in the green, right? Green light, go. If you can live your life in the foods that don't create immune responses, it's going to be better. And then, everybody who runs a test is going to have foods they love that are going to have some kind of inflammatory response. And then if we can learn to be okay, here, I'll have this every once in a while, or, how often they should have it. Again, we can structure a much better program when we understand, again, severe, moderate, mild, good to go.
Yeah.
Because this is
so
the alternative, because this is a big alternative, right? You can go to Amazon right now. You can go to Barnes and Noble. Obviously, go to Amazon because most people aren't going to drive to Barnes and Noble and do this. But go type in the anti-inflammatory diet or, anti-inflammatory books, and you're going to have tons of them. And they're going to have all these so-called good foods, right? Because we always hear people say, I've been doing everything right and it's not working, right? I've been eating healthy and something's not working. Eating healthy is a blanket statement, right? Just because something might be healthy for somebody else doesn't mean it is for them. And then we also have to look at what does the word healthy mean? Yes, it might be nutrient dense, it might be nutrient packed. But if you have an immune response, we just find a better alternative than that particular ingredient that you had an immune response to. So if you go back to these books, eat this for breakfast, get this super food smoothie for breakfast, and then do this for lunch and follow it up with this for dinner. And these are your snacks because these are known anti-inflammatory foods. But you're never going to find a chapter in those books that say, do a food sensitivity test first. It's just, they're just listing off foods. And, and I can, and this is a great example. And then we can dive into kind of my protocol of what I did. But as a bodybuilder, I mean, bodybuilders have rampant inflammation, right? I mean, there is also a caveat to that, muscle growth is a response to inflammation. So, right, I mean, bodybuilders and people who lift weights and exercise a lot are creating inflammation. The idea is to keep it at bay to a certain degree, but I would get really bad tendonitis in my elbow, like really, really bad. I mean, it got to the point where I could barely do a bicep curl. And next thing I know, it's okay, well, I'm taking turmeric, right? Because turmeric is a very, very wide known anti-inflammatory. So my tendonitis in my elbows would get worse. So I would take what? More turmeric. I run my food sensitivity test. Turmeric is had a moderate inflammation response in my body. So I decided, I had pretty much retired from bodybuilding, and I'm like, I'm going to do a bodybuilding prep based on a DNA test, a methylation test, a cellular nutrition test, and a food sensitivity. So I did all of them. And lo and behold, turmeric was inflammatory for me. I took it out of my diet. I cleaned up some of the foods that we can dive into here in a bit that were, again, known immune responses from my neutrophils, and my tendonitis went away. Like it literally cleared up completely. It was gone. So was I taking a known anti-inflammatory? Absolutely. Was it doing anything for me? Not that it, no, it was actually hindering me. It was creating inflammation. But if I'd read a book that said these are no, so it's just, this is where all these things come out where, yes, they're using the word inflammation as a buzzword to try and sell a particular product, to say this is the cure to your inflammation. You don't want inflammation, do you? No, I don't want inflammation. Okay, well, here's a great product that's going to help stomp out inflammation in your life, and it's going to be great. But again, are these ingredients anti-inflammatory for them? Mm-hmm. We just don't know unless someone can tell, yeah, you don't need to test if you can tell me how your neutrophils, have an immune response to a certain ingredient. Like, if you have a way of knowing that outside of testing it, well, then you wouldn't need one.
Right. Yeah. I Speaking more on buzzwords, as the food pyramid has now changed and protein has become the buzzword. I've seen protein chips at
Yeah.
the store. Like, do you see what do you see as the effects of the buzz around protein foreshadowing?
I personally really like it because, I never coached a single person to the old food pyramid. It's not like that was something like, oh, okay, I got to change my whole. I never coached anybody to it regardless. I always thought it was pretty low in protein. So it is great to do, but it's still the same thing. Like there's, again, all the different protein sources out there. Again, myself personally, my go-to protein sources were typically beef and turkey. And lo and behold, both of them I had a mild response to from inflammation, a mild response, which didn't mean it was, wreaking havoc completely, but it was definitely something I should not have been eating daily. And, again, another example of that, right? Bodybuilders, it's, well, do you eat sweet potatoes or white rice? I'm like, well, I ate both, and sweet potatoes had a moderate inflammatory response for me. But my wife also did it simultaneously. And of course, ours were absolutely 180 completely opposites. Beef and turkey were fine for her. Sweet potatoes were fine for her. But, rice and the things that were good for me were not. So, we had to prep on completely different diets. And again, we can dive into that here in a bit. But, I will go as far as saying, bodybuilding prep is hard. But when I eliminated the foods that had, an immune response for me, and I added the foods that didn't, and the supplements that I was taking, all those types of things I changed up based on this test. One of the things of bodybuilding is inflammation can make us retain water, which in bodybuilding towards the end is a very bad thing. And I would have to do all these crazy water protocols to expel water and stuff. I didn't even have to do it. I did not retain water the entire time. Guarantee inflammation. I didn't have a single joint ache. I had never done a prep. Now, I'm 46 years old. And I started competing at 36. And when I was younger, my joints would hurt more during prep. Injuries were more prone, and I didn't have literally no issues whatsoever, other than some hunger because I was obviously eating less. But none of the joint pain, none of the water retention, none of the sleep problems, none of the stuff that I ever had to go through during other preps because I implemented exactly what my biology called for. So you talk about peace of mind and knowing that you're doing the right thing. There's a lot more confidence in that too, as you run a plan out.
Yeah. What do you think about I want you to speak on maybe a trainer or even an individual that thinks like, well, I'm not performing at a high level. Why do I need to dial in my nutrition and training this deep? Like I can just do the things that need to be done and see results, right?
That's kind of a problem, I guess, on the planet, right? It's like, well, if I'm not going to compete, if I'm not going to take this to a high level, what's it matter? Well, I don't know. What's your health matter? I mean, there does come a point in time, and I always say this. It's like, it's an easy thing when you're 20 years old to, go out drinking every night, wake up with a hangover for like an hour, and then it goes away. And then all of a sudden, things are, then all of a sudden you're 30 and that hangover is like 24 hours. And then, then you get older and it's like a 72, it's just like, yeah, we can wreak havoc on our body when we're younger thinking, man, I mean, down the road, that's forever from now. Well, I mean, I'm 46. I mean, 16 years old feels like yesterday to me. I mean, in my mind, it's like, yeah, that was not that long ago. And then you're like, no, that was a long time ago. Well, 56 and 66 and 76 is going to be a blink of an eye. And everybody always says, if I knew then what I know now, life would be different. And I talk to people all the time. They're always telling me that are a lot older than me, oh man, take care of yourself now. We know these conversations are going to happen. We know we're all going to age. And do you want to age gracefully? Do we want to have all the health problems? Do we want to have all these things? Because people say, well, eating healthy and taking care of yourself is expensive. It is cheaper than a heart attack. It is cheaper than cancer. It is cheaper than all these things out there. But if we, take note of that, it has nothing to do with performing at a high level in a sport or a hobby in all reality. If that's your thing, that's great. But do you want to perform at a high level in your life and your health? Because I can also tell you, of all the years of coaching, I have seen so many people get a handle on their health, and their business gets better. They're more apt for a promotion. They work better. They're a better spouse. They're a better father. They're a better friend. I mean, is that always the case? No, but I'm saying this is the majority. Usually when you can get a handle on those things, and all of a sudden you have more energy and you have more clarity and you don't have all the ailments, you can focus on the other, so hypothetically, could running a food sensitivity test, eliminating a lot of the inflammatory foods out of your diet, improve your income? You're darn right it can.
Yeah, I think that's a understated, to be honest with you, is the impact across every component of your life. Inflammation isn't just in our joints or our muscles. Inflammation also affects your mood. And I mean, think across the board. So it's a huge, huge thing. So what can someone expect that does the ALCAT test? Like what are the big things that you've noticed? What are some of the maybe experiences? And so somebody out there maybe, considering this and say, well, this could help me, or this, is this just smoke and mirrors? What's the real world benefits that you've seen your clients experience?
So the ALCAT test comes with a giant warning. And here's the warning, right? Let's all go back to the movie The Matrix, right? Red pill, blue pill. Like, once you do an ALCAT test, now if you don't take it, there's being naive to things can also be, where they say, ignorance is bliss or whatever. My wife was like sweating bullets thinking that coffee was going to be on her sensitivity. She was like, please God, like, of all things. I mean, she was like praying that it wasn't on there, like literally. And it wasn't. She was like, I mean, it was the first thing she looked for, and it was like, okay, I've succeeded, right? But like, I did have foods on there that I would rather not be. It's kind of like, oh man. I mean, there is that, but at the same time, they're just food. So I always say there is a warning, because you are going to know, right? I mean, there's going to be a list right in front of you that now you know. And then it's what you do with that information that's going to make the changes. And every single client I have had do it, like immediately they've dropped, X amount of water weight. Like immediately, so that gave them some momentum. They all talk about literally every single one of them that have followed it, because again, just truth be told, not everybody has. Some people have gotten it, and it just, it was too, I mean, just being totally transparent on this, not everybody's followed it completely. because it was hard and they would rather have taken the other pill. They were the guy in the Matrix that wanted to get put back into the Matrix, right?
Ignorance is bliss. So if you
Right,
don't want
right.
to
They were like,
know,
just put me back in there, you know. But everybody talked about more energy, right? Better results in the gym, talking a lot about clarity, a lot more focus. They say they sleep better. I just, there's been tremendous improvements in everything they're doing. And then they did say, yeah, yep, I went and had whatever that was on my list, Friday night at dinner. And like, yeah, it was no big deal. It didn't do. These are sensitivities again, not allergies, right? There is a big difference, but yeah, some people, yeah, I mean, it's been phenomenal for probably 80% of people. 20% wanted to get put back into the matrix.
Yeah, and I think that's critical to understand. And as a disclosure going into it, it's like, look, we can do this test. Are you going to follow? Are you, and depending on how significant some of the results are, maybe that's a determining factor. But at the end of the day, is I personally, I mean, I would like to know so that I can modify, I mean, for you, beef, right? It doesn't mean you can never have it again, but maybe you've been eating too much and you've created and built up a sensitivity to
That was probably my body saying, all right, dude, try something else.
it.
Now, beef did not mean red meat. Lamb and bison were totally fine for me. Elk, stuff like that. Deer, totally. It was just beef. So yeah, I mean, it didn't mean red meat. So I just found an alternative source. And then there's another client, and I have to mention this because sometimes even myself, like I bring my own biases into things because we're all guilty of it. I did get her sensitivity test back, and guys, I'm telling you, like I was so scared to present it to her because it was like you can't eat anything. I mean, I mean, it was bad. She was ecstatic. I'm a pretty positive person, but like I went into it almost like, oh man, I'm so sorry, you know. But what do I'm sorry for? This is her body. This is how her body is going to do better. It was literally beef, bison, elk, turkey, chicken. I mean, it was almost like you can eat fish and only a few fish. Now again, I don't want to, but this was like most of them are nothing like this one. But she was ecstatic. She's like, well, man, I really like those. I mean, it was so limited. She's like, well, this makes it easy. I
it's
was like, talk about
now
the
now I
eternal
know.
optimist. Yeah. Talk about the eternal optimist. She was ecstatic, and she's followed it and followed it. I mean, she is. I mean, literally like the epitome of like the perfect client. And she was getting results before, and now that she's just simplified everything, her results just skyrocketed. And she is. I mean, we've already had the quote unquote client breakup. Like she is no longer. I mean, she's a gym member. We help her, but like she's no longer a paying client, and she's just killing it. Which is my coaching approach. I always tell people like my job as a coach is to like almost treat you like my children. Like my job as a father is to raise two functioning adults who don't need dad anymore. As terrifying as that sounds, like that's my job. Well, that's my job for clients. Like, if Joe gets hit by a bus, okay, yeah, send me a sympathy card, but it's like, no, they have their own life to live, right? My job is to teach them how to run their life, and that's how I've always approached. And she has taken it, and she's still getting phenomenal results totally on her own, motivated to the hills. And it was awesome. But yet I had my own bias, like, oh man, this is going to be a hard thing to present because she can't eat anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And I say can't eat anything. There's still a ton of options. But like for me, I'd be like, oh, this is, like it, but all the options that she had were perfect for her. And this doesn't even touch base on, I've had other clients, 3 of their medications were on the list of moderate inflammation responses. 3 of his prescribed medications from a doctor were on the list also because it goes more than just foods. It goes to medicinals. It goes to all these other things, and here I'm sitting here drinking an energy drink while we're on here. And, just another thing, like, Everybody out there talks about, sucralose and aspartame. Again, this is just something to, something to talk about, and why we need to do natural alternatives like monk fruit and stevia, which I think monk fruit and stevia are a great option. Guess what? Not for me. Monk fruit and stevia were inflammatory for me. Sucralose and aspartame were not. Now, should I probably still drink them? No. But it's good to know if I'm going to have an energy drink, I can have the ones that taste good, not like monk fruit and stevia. Jim,
Yeah.
funny story. I have, as a gym, I've got wholesale accounts with a bunch of different companies for supplements. And, another buzzword is ancestral stuff, right? Primal. You want to be primal, right? No, I like indoor plumbing and microwaves. I don't want to be primal, but that's a buzzword. Ancestral, right? These are what our ancestors did, like organ meats and stuff like that. Now, again, organ meats they're very nutrient dense. Well, one of the supplement companies I can purchase from came out with like the beef organ pills, right? Like I don't want to eat beef organ, but if you can capsule it up in powder and eat it, it might be better because they're incredibly nutrient dense. And I had just done my blood work for my food sensitivity, my outcat test, and I got this email from the company saying new beef organ supplement, wholesale like this. And I'm like, well, heck, that might be good. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like I was this close to buying it. And I'm like, wait, dummy, wait on your sense. I go, because I came to the conclusion, I go, I'm not putting another supplement in my body unless it can prove to me that it's beneficial and that it's not inflammatory. And then I got an email saying, buy them. Oh man, that's a great price. And then I'm like, wait, time out. I just said I'm not doing this until I get this test. Sure enough, beef. I mean, it literally would have been inflammatory for me. And I'd have been popping it every day thinking I might be getting nutrients from it. Yeah, that's one thing. But again, the beef side of things, I actually, technically I changed my fish oils around because I had a sensitivity to mackerel and anchovies and sardines. So I went to a salmon source fish oil because people take fish oils as anti-inflammatory because omega-3s can be anti-inflammatory. But because of the source, I changed and I went to a salmon source. So you can dive in. There's no way I would have figured that out by doing Whole30. There's no way I would have figured any of that out by doing the elimination diet because when I ate beef, I felt fine. There wasn't, but feeling it and having the inflammation, again, that's the scary part because it's a hiding thing that's creating chronic inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And the more and more you have, again, the more. Now, again, we're going to do a different episode on this, but my cellular nutrition wise, it was during show prep too, but my cellular, I was pretty deficient in a lot of things too, probably because I'm blaming turmeric. I have a grudge against turmeric now because I took it for so long thinking it was good and it was slowly destroying my elbows.
Yeah. Yeah. So if someone out there is feeling the effects of chronic inflammation, what are describe some of those symptoms and what they can do to take next steps?
If you're feeling it, it's typically going to be joint aching, maybe, some changing in the gut, right? You can tell you're probably retaining and holding water but maybe chronic fatigue, maybe a little bit of brain fog. But those are some of the things that people can kind of notice, but a lot of it is you just don't even know. And that's the scary part.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, inflammation, we have another coach, talked about inflammation is the beginning of disease. And there's a lot of truth in that. And that can be scary. But inflammation is also something that, riddles people's bodies and lives with, think about like fibromyalgia. That is like an
Yeah.
inflammatory response to breathing. you know. So yeah.
Think of it like a picture. Think of like this cell, right? If people are listening, just picture this along with me. Say there's this cell that's like a perfect circle, right? And that's the that's the shape that the cell's supposed to be. And all of a sudden we start inundating it with immune responses because on that, again, that cell has neutrophils, and it's gonna, right, every time we're introducing items, foods, supplements, um, medications, all those things, again, they are being introduced to our cells. And if there's inflammation, let's start picturing that shell starts to or that cell starts changing shape. Or now all of a sudden it's an oval. And you're right, we keep eating beef and turkey and sweet potatoes, beef and turkey and sweet potatoes, and throw some turmeric to it. Because beef and sweet potatoes are what bodybuilders eat, and bodybuilders pop turmeric because they have inflammation. So we keep doing this, right? Follow my sarcasm on that because this is me, right? So we keep throwing beef and sweet potatoes and turkey and turmeric on this thing because, again, I'm doing the right thing because every bodybuilding coach says that's what you're supposed to do. And right, so I'm doing what I'm told. And now all of a sudden that oval becomes another shape where one side starts getting a little bit bigger and the other side smaller. And then we keep eating sweet potatoes, beef, and turkey, and all the things that we're not supposed to be doing. Well, now all of a sudden it starts enlarging, and now that cell bursts. We talk about free radical scavengers and all of the waste that cell is creating to then go eliminate and detoxify out, like we talk about methylation pathways and all these things. There is a process. That cell is supposed to carry waste to a specific pathway to then exit it. But if we blow it up before it gets there, where are those free radicals going?
The garbage truck didn't make it to the dump.
The garbage truck didn't, exactly. I'm stealing that one, by the way. The garbage truck missed it, right? Like on a windy day when your garbage is blown over and it's like everyone's garbage is all over the yards. Like that's what's happening in your body and you don't even know it. Right. They are blowing up they're blowing up prematurely before they make it to the point that they can exit your body. So these free radicals are now running rampant all over your body. Now you have glutathione and all these antioxidants. Now we're pulling all these nutrients to go clean it up. Yeah, but Joe, I feel fine. I know, but eventually that is going to lead to some form of major illness, major disease. Yeah, but Joe, I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not a high performer. It doesn't matter. Your body's not, you are a high performer, right? If you have a family, you're a high performer, or you better be, right? If you have a job, you better be a high performer, right? No. So that's one of these things. This is what inflammation is doing. If you've got a bunch of free radicals running all over your body because of inflammation, we have to find which again, I say if, you more than likely do. I mean, I'm just telling you, you do. In today's world, trust me, you are suffering from inflammation. It's just to what degree. Right. Now, does this test say on a scale of 1 to 10, your inflammation is this? It doesn't say that. It's just saying these are the foods that are causing it. So if we can eliminate the foods and eliminate what we're doing in our lives that can, right, make it significantly less inflammation. And then again, our next episode is going to be on cellular nutrition to see where those levels are and actually talk about anti-inflammatories. You can sleep at night knowing, you know what, I've probably got inflammation under control. But again, you're not going to figure that out through the Whole30 diet. It's just not going to. I mean, can you get some of that right? Absolutely. Can you get 300 and some items figured out? No.
Yeah, that's too much. Yeah.
My wife had almonds on hers. Guess what she did every morning with her blessed coffee? She put almond milk in it every single morning. So what did she do? She just found an alternative. Why continue doing something daily that is not going to benefit you? It's, now again, do you want to go back and live in the Matrix? Well, just skip the episode. If you don't want to know, again, that is a viable option.
Well, but on that last thought is, I've done the Whole30, and I think there's things. I've also eliminated a lot of things, caffeine, like soda. I still drink coffee. But I've done the whole 30, and you will, speaking to people out there who are concerned about this or that with eliminating foods, you will be absolutely amazed. It's like the first time I had an unwich at Jimmy John's. Like, oh my God, I tasted the roast beef. I love their bread, but oh my God, the roast beef is delicious, right? I mean, it's so I think your palate changes, and don't be so afraid, the people listening, don't be so afraid of what you might have to or eliminate for a period of time, because your palate will awaken to other things that you don't even realize you are missing. So somebody who likes sweets, there's plenty of natural sweet things that you miss out on because of the over hypersensitive, sugars that we've been fed.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Our body, as miraculous as it is, will probably tell you most of these answers if we just listen. Also, like, people ask. I mean, a side note. I mean, some people ask, like, how much salt should I? Well, your your taste will tell you. I mean, there's times we crave things. Pregnant women might crave. I mean, a lot of times it's because our body wants it. And that's a great example of that client I had that I thought was restricting her so much. She loves it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like her body saying, "Look, we'd rather have this than what you were doing before." It's. I mean, she thrived a ton, even though it was a lot more limited.
Right.
But most people are. That was an extreme case. Most are not. I mean, I had tons of options.
So if I've got inflammation and this test reveals all these different foods, Joe, you've mentioned, like, all right, so with this cellular test, this CNA test, what's that going to do? Like, okay, but how's that going to help my inflammation?
So the cellular nutrition test looks at vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and amino acid levels, not in the neutrophil, but in the lymphocyte, right? So go back to your textbooks and talk about lymphocytes. But and then it will look, okay, so for instance, let's say glutathione is low. Well, that means you've got inflammation quite a bit because glutathione is the body's master antioxidant. So if glutathione's low, you're definitely fighting off there's a high demand on it, so therefore your cells are going to be low in it. But then it also has something called a redox score that looks at how your lymphocytes now take on what is it, like 58 items or something, or 55 items or something like that. How it responds to turmeric, milk thistle, right? Acai, resveratrol, rhodiola, right? All these things that we keep hearing in supplements. It will show, not to mention, not to kind of jump the gun on next episode, but my lymphocytes showed zero benefits from turmeric. There was no response. So not only was I taking it and wasting it anyways because it didn't do anything from an antioxidative, anti-inflammatory standpoint, by doing the sensitivity test, it also showed that it was inflammatory. So again, not only was it not even doing anything, it was actually completely in the negative because there was no benefit to it whatsoever.
Interesting. Well, I look forward to that conversation because
I I
I
really
think
like
that
that
that's
redox
the
score.
action, right? I'm the
Yeah,
action guy. Give me all the information, but
yeah.
great. Now what do I do about it?
I really like that whole redox score thing. So I mean, obviously, we're not going to dive into it today, but I geek out on that like crazy because these are. I mean, this is absolute evidence. Like it's proof. Like this is it's the smoking gun for anti-inflammation.
Sure.
It literally shows this is how your body either this supplement does something for it or it does not. And they're nutrients and a botanical, right? There's two different ones out there. So yeah, I mean it just looks on a cellular level whether or not your cells respond positively or neutral.
Yeah.
And
Well,
neutral means it didn't do anything for it.
yeah. Yeah, looking forward to that conversation next week. So, if you're listening and are wanting to learn more about food sensitivity, we'll have the link in below. And if you're interested in learning more about the CNA test, tune in next week. But until next time, stop guessing, start testing, and unlock your true X factor.